What's up folks, it's Barry, Big Plums Fishing here at one of my favourite spots, Frensham Trout Fishery in Surrey. I've got 3 favourite fisheries I like to fish: Frensham, Rockbond Trout Fishery in the New Forest, and also in Kent, Spring Hill Trout Fishery. It's a lovely little spot, very quiet. You can do a sporting ticket here. It's very natural, lots of very hard fighting fish, and fast flowing fresh water makes a massive difference. As you can see, this place is so quiet. Let's go and have a wander around. So it's dead quiet. Look at all the insect life. Absolutely chock-a-block with midges hatching off, so buzzers will be good today. Okie dokie. So going with a 5 weight today. I've got my Orvis Helios 3D, lovely rod and 5 weight. Standard floating line to start. I like the Scientific Angler brand, lovely brand of line. Okay guys, starting out, I've decided to go on a gold-headed tadpole pattern. Let's fire it in the water and see if I can get an early fish or two.
The first thing I'm trying to do when I turn up to a fishery is to mainly find out the depth that the trout are feeding at. 9 times out of 10 they're either in the top sort of couple of inches of water or they're right at the bottom of the lake. So with a bead-headed fly, it's all about counting down your flies. You know, start out 5 seconds, letting the fly sink before you retrieve. Start out then at 10 seconds and then 15 or 20 seconds, and also vary the speed of your retrieve. I was using a figure of 8 here with the tadpole pattern. You can tweak it back, you can strip it. To be honest, I think the figure of 8 retrieve is probably the most versatile retrieve that you can get. You can speed it up, you can put pauses in. Putting in pauses is one of the most important things I think that I do to catch as many fish as I do. A lot of the time you'll be retrieving the fly and it's on the actual pause that I feel the fish take the fly, or I see my line tweak. That's another good thing with a floating line too, guys. It's actually, you can see the indication of a bite just from the way that your line shoots off or tweaks to either side. I don't try and say that I'm an expert in any means of fishing, fly fishing, sea fishing or coarse fishing, but when I turn up to a lake, I do try my best to read what's happening on the lake at that time. I turned up at the lake today and I saw there were tons and tons of buzzers hatching, so I try and vary my tactics on that information I can visually see when I arrive. So about half an hour in, I saw lots of trout were starting to rise and take these emerging buzzers, so I thought now is the perfect time to stick on an emerging buzzer and try and get a trout on a dry fly. And luckily for me, I hook into this absolutely wonderful 4-pound rainbow trout here. It was quite acrobatic, as were many fish on the day. There's lots of oxygen at Frensham, lots of dives, lots of runs, and I had lots of jumping fish, which is always exciting when you hook an acrobatic rainbow trout. You know, those flips are just absolutely magic to watch, and unless you've actually hooked a trout on a fly rod and seen them do it, you really can't appreciate how awesome it is. I ended up having a really good session at Frensham yesterday. I had about 15 or 16 rainbow trout, as well as 1 miniature brown, as you'll see here on the video. And probably the biggest tip I can give anybody is never stick doing the same thing the entire day. I try 10 or 20 different tactics in one session, and that's how I have as much success as I do. Not saying I'm like the dog's bollocks or anything, but you know, I do normally catch fish. I very rarely blank when I go somewhere. And that is because I really will try so many different things. If I'm doing something for half an hour and it's not working, I will try something else. You know, you could arrive at a fishery and then the fish are chasing lures for the first hour and people firing at big lures have success early in the morning. But then in a period of time, they're then taking buzzers from the top of the lake, you know, taking dry flies. And then an hour later in Maytime, you could have a mayfly hatch and they're taking the mayfly nymphs right down the bottom of the bed of the lake. The important thing is to always try different things. I find it very frustrating when I see people, they sit at the same swim, they use the same line, the same fly, and they refuse to move and they refuse to try anything different. You normally see these guys packing up their fishing gear about lunchtime with a really grumpy look on their face, saying something to the nature of, are there any bloody fish in this lake? But at the same time, the fish will be moving around all the time. The fish will follow the food, and if you're not prepared to change those tactics, there's a good chance you might Captain Blanco and not catch the fish at all. Probably the most common scenario I see this happen is when people turn up with their lures and their big heavy rods and their sinking lines, and they have good success early on in the day. When you first turn up to a fishery, especially the rainbow trout, do love to chase anything orange, anything that's like a cat's whisker or fry based. You're going to catch a few fish early on, and I like fishing lures as much as anyone out there, man. Especially early on for the first hour or whatever. It is a lot of fun. You don't have to think about it. You fire out a lure, you twitch it back, and you get a few kind of early stock fish. And it's good to always put a few notches into your rod, you know, get a few fish early on. But as the day wanes on, you tend to find the fish move on to more natural stuff. And when you thrash the water into a crazy foam, the fish do kind of stop taking the lures. And that's when, if you're not prepared to change your tactics, you can find yourself having a long day. But the fish you see here was taken on an emergent buzzer, which was a natural pattern, because I'd noticed that the fish were rising in the lake. For me, it is always more satisfying to match the hatch and get something on naturals, you know. You're imitating what the fish is eating opposed to playing up to a fish's aggression. So that for me is worth 5 fish on a lure. But man, a £4 fish, I'll take that any day.
That is a lovely fish, my friends. Say, every part of £4 there. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. About £4 that is. Let's let them recover. Always leave them in the water. So let them get some oxygen back in their lungs. Oh, that was a big fight. He jumped several times. Let's see. There we go, he's off, no problem.
Now this was an interesting fish. It was kind of weird, man. I was kind of hanging my fly there, just retrieving my line. Just I was about to move swim because it kind of died off in that swim. But hanging the fly again does work. You know, the fish could be following you in. You're retrieving for a long period of time. Just hanging it there enticingly. The feathers dancing does tend to entice the fish to grab at that fly. But I've never had that before, and I'm actually winding my line in. Have a fish take at that particular point. But c'est la vie. It was a fish.
So I saw this fish swimming around with all line stuck in him, so I hooked the line and I'm going to be able to get him in and get him unhooked. Poor thing swimming around with that in him. Look at that.
This little guy was doing a Jaws impression, dragging his indicators and line, but I was able to unhook him and release him unharmed.
Right guys, the fishing's died off a little bit. And it's time to go to some buzzer fishing under an indicator. I know it's not pure risk, but at the end of the day, I want to catch some fish. So what we've got, let's see if I can show you quick. Right, so I've got an aluminous buzzer there, which is yellow, and about 2 foot underneath, I've got a foam stick-on indicator. So when the fish takes the buzzer, it dips under the water and I strike into the fish.
In my experience of fly fishing, there's no other tactic out there which gets up people's noses more than indicator fishing. There's a big sect of fly fishermen who absolutely detest indicator fishing. Now, I'm an ex-course fisherman as a boy, so for me it is basically float fishing and I don't have a problem with it. There is no better way to present your buzzer statically using one single fly than using an indicator. And there are ways to fish one single fly, you know, without using an indicator. I've seen them all, and believe me, they are a pain in the arse. You can tie your fluorocarbon onto nylon with special knots, this, that and the other, but they're just such a pain to do when you can just use an indicator and fish exactly the same method. But some people, they just really have a problem with it, and they believe they're upholding some secret code of the ancient tradition of fly fishing by not using them. At the end of the day, it's effective. It presents your buzzer statically, which the fish are potentially feeding on. Why fanny around with all these other tactics when you can just use an indicator and catch fish? That's just my 2 cents on it, guys. I think they're an effective tool for any fly fisherman. Here we go, another rainbow on indicator. Lovely, lovely fish. Let's get him back. And off he goes. Mate, go in. Oh mate, I love going. Okay, so he's been unhooked, and there we go. Off he goes. Had a really cracking day sport, guys. I really enjoyed my day at Frensham. I always have a good session there, no matter when I fish it, from the middle of August to the middle of winter. I always catch fish. They're always really hard fighting, and I recommend it to anyone out there. It's in Surrey. It's £30 for a catch and release ticket, or £40 for 4 fish, and then you can do catch and release afterwards. It's a lovely little place, guys. So quiet, so unspoilt. Gillian, the owner, is very friendly. I really recommend it to anyone. It's one of my 3 favourite fisheries that I fish, and yeah, big thumbs up from Barry Big Plums. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Plums out. There we go. Oh wow, look at the spots on you. Pretty fish.